Welcome to the MYBcast, a podcast and video series devoted to exploring alternatives of self care through somatic touch therapies of all sorts. We're fascinated with the mind body connection, and so are the people we talk with. Today, we're continuing our series, Portraits of the Pioneers. Portraits offers an in depth look at those who have been actively involved in the exploration, development, and practice of somatic touch therapies since their early inception. I'm Anna Marie Bowers, and I'm joined here with my co-host, Richard Mack. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Anna Marie.
Today, we are thrilled to have with us Dr. Mark Hoch. He is a founding diplomat of the American Board of Integrative and Holistic Medicine. He has an active medical practice in Asheville, North Carolina, holistic integrative family medicine. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Go ahead. We had talked about you were going to explore a little bit with us about what holistic medicine looks like for you.
So if I could set that up, Mark, I am a new client. I just moved to North Carolina and I found you. I'm walking into your office for the first time. Where do we begin?
Okay, yeah, good setup. Yeah, what I like to do starting, with a first visit, and I think it's important to mention that my first visit is usually 2 hours, because it takes that long to unpack what's going on, at least to get a really good start, get some good traction. And also because many of the people that come to see me have been, 5 or 10 places already. And if it was easy to figure it out in 5 minutes, somebody probably would have done that already. Um, so what I like to do is sort of set the stage, is partly talk about the idea of health and healing as opposed to just, treating symptoms or killing diseases. Because the Western medical paradigm, it's really interesting that it's called allopathic medicine. And what that means is opposite suffering, which is a really funny way to talk about healing, and it's usually about getting rid of symptoms and diseases or killing symptoms and diseases. But one of the things I tell people right off the bat is, one of the things we want to do is we want to set the stage for, what's really going on right now, but also where are we trying to get to? And if we're trying to get to health, or if you're trying to get to the promised land, or whatever you want to call it, the first thing you need to know is that A, it exists, and B, you have to have some idea how to get there. And the problem I have with Western medicine is if you're just blowing up all the roads to hell, or all the roads to or connections to things that you don't like, it doesn't necessarily mean anything really is going to get better, or you're going to get to the place you want to get to, because you still don't really have a goal. So that's one of the key things I stress with people. And then I like to tell people a little bit about myself and my background, mostly so they can understand how to use me as a resource. Like, these are things that I'm able to do for you. These are maybe some things that I'm not able to do, or I can, if that shows up, I'll do my best to get you connected with somebody who can help you. So that's kind of the stage there. And then just really getting into that concept of healing and connecting getting connected ourselves with our true nature, and all the self-regulating, self-correcting, processes that are within us, operating all the time.
Fascinating. So I'm living in this thing called the United States of America, which everything seems to be a little bit crazy. I'm finding myself being extremely anxious and hyped up and not knowing what's going to happen next. Do you find people coming into your office that are similar in their situation?
Yeah, I think that's common in our day. And as I shared with you a little bit earlier, it's also been a big issue locally here in Western North Carolina, because we had that really big storm come through 9 months ago. So there's been quite a bit of disruption too. A lot of people lost their homes. We're being one of them. They lost vehicles, they lost their business. The neighborhoods all was flooded out. So yeah, that's a little bit compounded here. And but wherever we're starting, we might as well just acknowledge that, and then just drop in and see what's the best way to deal with the current situation, and and how to move forward from there. But yeah, it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, we do exist in a context of our environment, whether that's geographic or physical, emotional, whatever. So, are there specific groups that you're involved with down there that are helping with that level of disruption?
In terms of with the hurricane,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
a
mean,
little bit. It's
with
mostly
your yeah.
it's mostly local community people, and just helping out, where I can with that. And with folks, there's some folks where I'll involve groups where we can get them some support or some financial support. And thankfully, there are a lot of good groups around, community groups, spiritual groups that are helping people. So that helps a lot.
There was at one time a conversation, and this is back in the 70s or 80s, a conversation about bodywork organizations in general, putting together teams of people to go to places where there has been a major disaster and be able to work with the trauma and stress and disruption with the individual people so that they have some sense of coming back to themselves again. I was wondering if this was a long time ago, and so I have no idea if anything like that even exists. Um, if you're aware of anything like that, people who,
Yeah, there was some of that here, and I think some of it was individual people showing up, and there were other events where there were people doing body work there. I just actually talked with a massage therapist yesterday who was involved a fair
okay,
amount with that. She did quite a bit with that. I was more peripherally involved with that, but yeah, and it was nice, and I think it really is helpful for people, and even we just had our Southeastern Regional Integrative Medicine meeting here in Asheville, about 10 days ago. And it was great. We had at lunchtime or breaks, there were, 4 body workers, and people could just walk over, get a chair session, you know. It was
nice.
nice.
That's nice. So, are there any? So, circling back a little bit to your practice and your clients, are there any particular stories that stand out for you? Things that you've observed with a particular client that surprised you, um, or were profound for the client?
Yeah, I mean, surprises happen all the time. So, and just getting back to, you know, S- Sylvan Tompkins, that we talked about a little bit. That's one of the affects is, startle or surprise, which is the neutral one. It's just like a novel, something novel is going on. Pay attention. See where this is going. And I think that's a great attitude to have, because then it allows us to be open to whatever's happening in the moment, to pay attention to it, and then ideally respond in a therapeutic or a good way that's going to open the door. So yeah, I'll see what flows, but yeah, so many times there'll be a pain or an emotional thing, that we'll get to, using that lung analogy again, okay, so, what's the grief about, or what's the heaviness in the chest about? And then it's, you know, a change in a relationship. I thought as we grew older, our marriage would look this way, and it's kind of looking a little bit this way. And then, it allows for that conversation to open to a deeper level, and one of those things, I'd given somebody a homeopathic remedy called Ignatia for grief. And when we went up to a higher potency, it was like the person is this is too much. It's like it's bringing up too much stuff. So then but it was great, because then we could, at that visit, it said, okay, well, you can go back to the lower potency, but then we were able to talk at a deeper level of things that we had already discussed, but it went to the next level, and it was, helpful to that person. That would be, one example.
Mm-hmm. So you're able to bring in all of these different, you've studied so many things. I'm just in awe that you can pull it all together like this. And it gives you such a tremendous, you are a tremendous resource. And we're trying to figure out how to make people know that, help people know that and learn about the different things that you offer, the different things that you could maybe even just in general. Are there some things that you would recommend to the general public, some things that they could do for themselves?
Sure. Yeah. And I got one other
Yeah,
story
go ahead,
that just came to
please.
me.
Good.
Recently I had seen this 11-year-old boy, and one of the things that the family was concerned about was like every time he was eating like organic beef from a famous national, store, he would get sick. And I was like, well, maybe let's see if it's the beef or something else. So I had him go to a local butcher where, all the meat is like absolutely, regeneratively farmed land and everything. And it turned out, comes back, oh yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Um, and then there was an issue. He was kind of gaining weight, and I don't even think we even had time the first visit to do any blood tests and everything, but he definitely had like low thyroid symptoms and things going on. So I knew this kid was like exceptional. So I was like, okay, let's go to the table and and see if we can help you with that. And there was one or two body things that we needed to work with. So then when we were getting into like the throat and the thyroid area, that what turned out, there was this big issue with his teacher at school, just couldn't deal with his level of awareness and that sort of thing. So she would just, every time he would speak, she would kind of shut him down. Like sometimes it was overt and sometimes it wasn't. It was a little bit covert, but he was aware. His kid's like super aware. And I'll explain that in a second. But it was great. So I was able to, talk to him about that, what his experience was with that at school. And then, we were able to just come up with a way that to acknowledge that part of that was just the teacher, just that was her capacity, and for him to be careful not to, maybe he has to modulate what he's doing at school to some degree, but not to let that affect the rest of his life. And then, it just boom, the energy opened up, and he's probably fine, because I haven't heard back from, his mother. And then I was saying something, you know, so we were having a good time, and then his mother just said, "Oh yeah, he is an amazing kid. Like I have this whenever I have neck pain or shoulder pain, he just comes over and rubs my back, and it goes away instantly." And then from across the room, this 11-year-old says to his mother, "Well, Mom, that's because I just see what colors are missing in your neck, and I just put them in there." I had no idea that was coming. And then the two of us did this fist bump, and then he was on his way, but I'm sure he was fine, like that's a really exceptional one. I wish that happened all the time, but that was a real fun thing that happened in the last couple months here.
So is he now working in your office with you?
Yeah, I should get this kid to help me out. Yeah. I should
That's
get him to help me out. That's a great idea, Richard. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
That's amazing. And it's interesting as the light opens up for all of us human beings and we're getting this amazing infusion of wisdom. It's like, how is that going to show up and how is that going to appear as we go forward in the paradigm of what we're experiencing in life? That's fascinating. I have a question for you. You mentioned just a moment ago about, the healing conference that you had down there and the fact that you had licensed massage therapists and other types of body workers participate. Do you work with body workers? I know that touch is something that is very important. Going back to Sylvan's thing about the skin, it's where it's at, and the idea that we're receiving, and touch is a big part of that. It is the part of it. It's the connection, really. Um, Do you integrate with other practitioners, body workers, with the outpatient aspect of what you're doing with your clients?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. So often people will already have somebody on their team, and I will collaborate them. Otherwise, I've gotten to know folks in the area. There are a few physical therapists that are just really tapped in and go deeper with this work. So, I will, you know, often steer people in that direction. And then there's, yeah, a whole variety of other somatic practitioners, including, some very high level massage therapists, um, people doing, variations of Rolfing, and other things. Yeah, and that's an important thing. And it's particularly important for some of my clients because not everybody's local. I get people coming from, the whole area, some South Carolina, Atlanta, Southern Virginia, eastern part of North Carolina. And so people can't necessarily come in on a regular basis because of the travel restrictions. So it's trying to get them connected with people in their area. And if I know somebody, I will definitely do that. And if not, I'll try to steer them into, areas or what to ask people before they necessarily go see them or what to look for on their website.
Mhm.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. One of the other aspects that what we're doing, I'm involved with doing some teaching as well, something called somatic mindfulness. Coming as a Traeger practitioner myself, and my partners Madelana Ferrara and Dr. Fernando Rojas, we're working with licensed massage therapists, physical therapists, and chiropractors, and bringing mindfulness into their approach. Some of the things that you're talking about with the energy and connecting and so forth. Um, but one of the things that's coming up as we start to get deeper into this healing process, we still have the issue of people are paying out of pocket for this service. Now, I noticed in your CV that in your early days with Traeger, you were helping Traeger practitioners with coding in how to code what you're doing so that the insurance companies could possibly reimburse their clients. I'm fascinated about that topic, and I'd like to understand it better. Can you share a little bit about that and how that works?
Yeah, how it works or doesn't work now.
Yeah,
It
right.
was a lot easier to do that in the past, with coding and getting things covered. Um, what what I found is very sad is I'm pretty much out of the system now because like every week it just gets more cumbersome and more um, things just get blocked or like they don't diagnoses like because they're going to these international coding systems even like they're diagnoses that have been around for 100 something years and like there's no code for it anymore or that the name isn't on the code. So that's one challenge. And then I find too there's a lot of times the restrictions only you can only get so much time or so many visits. But I try to, if I can, and people need it, I really try to find licensed people who can get things covered, like, under the physical therapy license or massage therapy license or their medical license. Um, and, and it's just sad because when I worked at this place called the Arizona Center for Health and Medicine back, in the 90s, we, had this thing called the Arizona Center for Health and Medicine that I've never seen recreated. It's kind of funny. I look back like, over 25 years ago and I'm like, that was like the peak of my career on one level. I mean, my skill level and what I can do now is way higher than that. But to have a setting where we can do all of these things we've talked about, including acupuncture and, regular medicine, and have it all under one roof and have it covered. And it works. That's the part that's so sad for me because we had a company insurance company that sent us all of the people that were the highest utilizers, both in terms of office visits, emergency room visits, pharmacy benefits, whatever. And, they sent us the worst of the worst and, everyone else's nightmare. And within 1 year, we cut the cost 47 to 57%. and the patient satisfaction skyrocketed and the outcomes skyrocketed. So it's like, I know this works because if we could do that, 10 different practitioners, probably like 6 doctors, a couple of acupuncturists, body workers, Kathy was doing Traeger at the office there. We had Tai Chi classes, yoga classes, wellness classes, nutrition class. If we could do that over 25 years ago, it should be better now. And it's sad because it works.
Is
So
that published? Is that published anywhere, that
I
information?
don't know that it was. That's a really good question.
Because that would be a really, that would be something that would be replicable. There are medical, for instance, with Parkinson's, there is a whole team approach in certain parts of the country. And so there are opportunities to maybe replicate that kind of a thing in different parts of the country where people are more receptive to that and where there's actual teams working that are not just doctors. There's massage therapists, there's psychotherapists, there's, a whole team approach. I'd be really curious if you let us know if that's out there somewhere that published or exists in
Yeah,
writing.
I know the insurance company, they were stoked about it. And it got published somewhere, but I'm not sure that it made it to any medical journal. There were some things like alternative therapy. Sam
Yep.
Benjamin, who was the person who had the idea for that center, was connected with those folks.
Okay.
But just another story. One client would chronic pain would come in, and I'd see her about once a month, and probably at least half the time we were doing definitely doing some form of body work, and quite usually it was actually Traeger. And I remember having a conversation with the nurse manager, and I was like, I remember this like it was yesterday, even though it was 30 years ago, whatever. It was like, Sandy, so and so, she comes in, she almost never does her homework, blah blah, I'm not so sure, where we're going with this. And she's like, now, Dr. Hoch, you just don't understand. Before she was seeing you, she went to at least one specialist a month. She went to the emergency room like 11 or 12 times, last year. And she's the happiest we've ever seen her. She saw one specialist last year and didn't go to the emergency room. We don't care what you're doing, whatever you're doing, it's working. You just keep doing it and we will pay you. like like that would never happen now. And it's really sad because everybody, again, this concept of working together, it's not just like all the parts of our body working together, but if all the parts of the community are functionally working together, this woman's life was better. She maybe just reached where she wanted to go or what she felt she was able to do, but it's like she was happier, she was healthier, costs went down, insurance company was saving money, everybody was having more fun. Like, what's the problem?
Mm, mhm.
It's just sad because I know it works because we did it. Yeah.
what do we do to bring this back? I mean, that's what we're really trying to do here. We're involved with the Foundation for somatictouch.org. It's a 501c3. We're looking for donations. We're looking for grants. We know that research is important. We know that as AI becomes a very important part of the intake system in the medical community, that if you're not even showing up in a database somewhere, you don't exist. We got to get that fixed. We got to get that in place. And one of the things that I'm feeling, and I totally agree with the things that you listed under your biogeometry, we're all a dynamic living system. And we are existing in this sea of energy. We're all one. This is the law of one. And if we're going to heal each other, we need to be able to pay attention to that and line up to that way of thinking. So that's a good place for us to end this episode 2. And I will invite our audience to join us again for more as we return for episode 3. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Anna Marie.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Here.